Hello and welcome everyone to a new session in the Lighting Academy. So, yeah, it took me again a little bit longer than anticipated, but yeah, here we are. So with that said, yeah, I mean, I explained it in on my Patreon page, but I'm just gonna quickly explain for all the other viewers again what actually happened. But before we do that, first of all, everything that I'm going to say is, as usual, is my opinion. It's my way of doing things, and you can always decide for yourself if you want to follow these practices or if you just want to get inspired by some things and, you know, do your own workflows, your own things. You know, just take from this what you want, what you need. All right. So with that out of the way, let's get going. Also, one important thing: if you like my channel and if you think that my videos are helping you out and you can benefit from all the content that I provide, please consider dropping by Patreon, or I also have PayPal Me. And if you think you want to support me a little bit, drop some donations or so, you can do that via Patreon or via PayPal Me. And both links are down in the description of the video. So yeah, if you feel that's cool, you want to do that, head over there and support me. Thanks. All right, cool. So last time when we worked on this environment, there were a couple of issues with stuff being like broken. So I had like tons of like weird flickering here on these floor tiles, and they were like always swapping back and forth between like being too bright, being too dark. And some of you might remember that in one of the older sessions, I started optimizing all the light maps. So I did like a huge session where I didn't record that because it took so much time, but I did a huge session of going through this here and just optimize everything. And I explained in one of the last videos that basically while I did that, I got a GPU crash and Unreal crashed as well, because I had like tons of windows open and, you know, weird stuff happening. So basically, since I had that crash, all the stuff was broken in here. I was talking to some folks at Epic also to like maybe get some feedback on what could potentially have happened there, but so far we haven't been able to really fix it. So what that means is this scene that you're looking at is the first time I got the scene and I started, you know, just like fooling around and test if I can bake everything and all that. I also started like building my own fire particle system, as you can see here, because I wanted something that looks a little bit more like a torch fire. But you can see, obviously, I'm not an FX artist, so that does not look that great yet. I mean, it's also not finished. I don't have a distortion on it and stuff like that. But I thought the fire was a little bit weak in terms of the particle size before. I think this is the old fire. And you can see, like, it doesn't look very torch-like. At least it has smoke. Mine doesn't have even smoke yet. But I think, you know, just the flame is better like that. But anyways, so I used the scene and fooled around a bit. And so this scene was still working. The other scene was broken that I actually started recording the session with. So there are a couple of things that are different in this scene because I just fooled around. So for example, you can see here these weird shadow artifacts that you can see here. And that is because I was like fooling around and trying to check out the screen space shadows, for example. So some of these lights here, they use screen space shadows. And overall, I all the lights that you can see here, the ones that are placed here, they were actually deleted, so I copied them over from the other scene to get back to the same state. I also went through the light maps and optimized some of them again, because that scene didn't have all the optimizations. So I actually missed some of them, so we don't have exactly the same optimized scene as we did with the other one. And you can also see that the vegetation looks slightly different. And that is because I fooled around with that a little bit as well. But I think overall, so this is actually how the other scene would more or less look like as well if we wouldn't have had the broken lighting. So you can see I have all the diffuse values are balanced here. I actually had to do that again a little bit. Whoops, unlit is not the accurate version. So you can see we have all these values balanced out here. And here we got some stuff with the trees that we need to look at again. What is this? That's interesting. Yeah, so I also went in and made this one here brighter. I just multiplied it up, so it's not really that much that I did here. So, yeah, I mean, you can already see that this is quite a little bit better than what we had. Also, you can see the bake is way more balanced. It's not like this weird stuff where like it's all super dark here and it doesn't really make any sense. So there's a couple of things that we need to look at here with the vegetation, I guess. So yeah, that is the state of the scene, and again, I would have wished to have it basically like that, but with the other content. But again, yeah, I just had to do it like this. So let's try to get the scene now going from here. So again, last time we were still like looking at some of the colors here, trying to tweak them. But what I want to continue now is actually I just want to continue setting some of the basics up again. So I think what we should do now is we should actually get rid of all the fake lighting. We should really go in and well, get our own lighting going and also like verify that everything is working the way we want. So what we can see here, for example, here you can see these blue speck reflections, and that is because there are always these lights placed here. You have the same here, and I think the intention of this was to like compensate a bit for the strong yellow look that we had going in the scene and basically get like this cool skylighting in. You know, you can see that here where we got like a blue soft light, and yeah, if I turn it off, now it happens again, but when I turned it off, nothing really happened because it was set to static, which means that it anyways is only baked into the light maps. So now that I basically turned it off and back on, now it's adding the direct lighting on top of it again until it's baked. So yeah. Anyways, what I think what we should do is we should just basically get rid of all of them. Because when we look at this, for example, there's a pretty big light here, which is kind of like yellow-orange. And it's kind of faking the bounce here from the sun coming by here and here, same thing. And it's kind of like my problem with these things is like it is so much. So first of all, it will get hard to control at some point on what light does what and how do you like, you know, get the look to be even again. The other thing is also that it kind of like it's bouncing in directions where it actually shouldn't bounce. So it is messing with the accuracy of our result quite a bit. So what I like to do is, I mean, I'm just gonna go in here. I'm just gonna select all of them. And as you can see, there's plenty. There's plenty of lights being placed here. And our goal should kind of like be to get something, well, not as similar, but like way more consistent looking without all these lights. We shouldn't need them. And it also kind of like, you know, this just, it just looks wrong. I mean, like where it looks wrong. Yeah, it's maybe, you know, like artistically speaking, it might be nice, but still, I think you could place it a little bit better. So for now, I'm just gonna delete all of them. And it's gonna be very interesting what we will get. So here you can see I have replaced the torch. So what we can actually do is, let me quickly see. So that is actually one of the old lights. Yeah. So what we could do later on is, I mean, we can just quickly make like a blueprint for the torch that we can quickly tweak. So let's just quickly do that, because it helps us quite a bit of keeping things like organized and having them like nicely together. So let's see, where do we want to add it? So all right. So what we can do is fairly simple. We will just gonna throw the objects in here, and you know, we're not gonna go too crazy. Why does the torch not have the material? Okay. So is that supposed to be like that? Let's see what happens when I place it. Maybe it has like something to do with that. I don't know. Okay. So, how does this torch instance material work? That's a bit confusing. Let's see when we get the torch and we put it in here. Okay, that is very interesting. How, where is there? Whoops. I just like wonder, where do I define if I want to have moss or not? I mean, because like You can clearly see that this is like full moss now, even though we have like this stuff here. And I don't really see a value to say like, how much moss do I want? I don't even know what all these values do. Ah! I want to get no moss. Yeah, this is a bit annoying. I will actually just quickly make a prop shader for that. Because, I mean, yeah, this is, I don't know why this is, like, being weird. And I also didn't build all these materials. And before I just, like, figure out for ages what is going on here, whoops, torch 01. Being a bit more lazy here and just making, like, a super simple material. And get my torch stuff going. Soup. So. Oh, by the way, you see I haven't yet imported actually this texture that we did for the other torch, but we can do that at some point. It's no big deal. Let's just like move it over and re-import the texture from the other source. It's no big deal. So let's have a look at this one here and just quickly try to figure out what channel is what. So this looks like the roughness to me. This is the metallic, and that is the AO, huh? Okay. So we got roughness, metallic, and AO. Great. Because, I mean, the thing is we're not using the moss anyways, so why bother? So, that's better. Cool. And let's see, where do I have my particle effect? That is the one. What is the other one? Ah, yeah, okay. That's something for later. Schwip. So we just put it here. Whoops. Yeah, I'm really sorry that this, it's like the super rough effect here. We would also need some sort of texture here that indicates that this thing is really burning. So, but for now, I think we can just use this. So now we got this. And what we also want to use is we want to add a light. So we can just like go point light. I want to have it as stationary for now. So. And yeah, I'm gonna move it up a bit to the front, kind of like this, maybe. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete this light. I'm gonna delete my nice flame particle effect. I'm gonna delete this one for now. And gonna compile my blueprint again. And I'm just gonna replace actor by BP torch. So, and now what I need to do obviously is I need to wait. What the hell, Unreal? Yeah, great stuff. Why? Jesus. Anyways, let's... Whoa. What is going on? It just worked. Hello. Yeah, this is a great moment when you try to show something that is super simple and the basic of the engine, and then it just fucks up for no reason. What the hell is going on? It just worked before I had the... What? Who's... What's static? Uh-huh. Okay, I got it. Sorry. So the default scene route was set to movable, and I swapped the light to be static, which is kind of like the reason why it fucked up. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo all that stuff. Come on. Because I basically, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I want the perfect position, which is the reason why I chose to do this, to basically replace it. So now I'm going to switch that to stationary, and the light is stationary. Now we compile the thing. So for some weird reason, if the default scene route is set to movable here, and you change the mobility of the light to stationary, it seems to fuck up, and then the thing doesn't render anymore. I have to admit that I haven't worked with blueprints in a very long time, because I'm not doing a lot of complex scenes anymore like these days, and I don't really work on a lot of own stuff. And if I do, most of my scenes are pretty simple. Sometimes I don't even use local lights. It's just like skylight and sunlight, bam, and that's it. So it's super vital to build blueprints for lights that you're gonna like use often, and that you want to have like some sort of functionality, or you just want to have it as easy as possible. So see, now that works. Now we got this. And I can recommend to everyone to like basically do this, you know, like if you can make a blueprint, because it's just gonna make your life easier. So just gonna move it so we kind of have like this. And now, I don't really want, or do I want the radius that big? Let's see. I mean, let's do it, because we're not gonna have a lot of torches here, so we can actually afford that big of a radius for the torch. And so what I also want to do is I want to use Kelvin for the temperature. And for now, I'm gonna use 2500 Kelvin as the temperature for the light source. We got shadows turned on, so we will get like a nice baked shadow here from this. And from these things too. And now what we can basically do is we can just like compile the blueprint again. Now we can just like go in here and delete all the stuff we don't want. So, get this one over here. Ah, here's a light that we forgot. Oh, we just quickly, yes. I'm gonna work our way through it. All right. I'm not yet, by the way, sure if we're gonna keep this brightness. We'll see about that. We also maybe add more torches. I mean, we also will see about that, because I mean, nothing is yet set in stone in regards to that. I mean, we can always come back to it later and say like, hey, we want more, or we want it like this or that. That's totally fine. So let's do this. All right, cool. So I mean, we can already see, right? I mean, even though this is not really perfect, this looks a lot better. And we also have to see that the fog is off right now. So this is like, I mean, if I would just go in here, in here, and you know, just like adding this, it just makes it so much more. But I think like having the vegetation a bit more lush like this actually works a lot better. So, but I mean, we're still not there. We'll continue to tweak that. So there is, yeah, but that's probably still baked information here. That's fine. All right. I'm just like double checking that there are not any more lights left over. And I think I really would like to add a torch maybe here. Let's double check that it's not burning the ivies. But actually, like stuff like this, I think that's pretty nice. And I also like this, so we will get a lot of like dynamics basically back from this that way. Remember when we had it like before, that we like from this view kind of, we had like a fake light here, but now we actually add like some more highlight spots, like some more interest, but we don't add it by adding invisible lights that no one can see and that actually don't really make sense and no one knows like where is this coming from. No, we actually added with like some stuff that is traceable, if you kind of like know what I mean. Traceable in terms of like you can read the environment and it makes sense. So I think we should maybe get away with that one and put it over here instead. So this was like placed like this, I think, in the other spot. I mean, yeah. Good enough. Good enough. Or let's just bring it down. All right. So sweet. So now what you can also see is, I mean, like I have everything kind of like really reset. So you see like the sunlight definitely has the wrong color. It should be more yellow than it is right now because of the low position as well, right? This is like if we would take this from a real world atmosphere, it would be a lot lower. Or sorry, it would be a lot more yellow-orange because it is such a low sun position. What we can also look at here is this light. So what you can see is this light actually has less intensity than the torches. That one has only 4,000. And I think the torches should actually have less than 5,000. So that's, otherwise it's a bit too bright. But I think this is important that you can see here, if I turn this off, you can like clearly see how this is adding like even here, like a nice little kind of like first bounce basically of light, and that really helps. It's really nice, and you would get that from fire. It's like usually lights in the real world, lights have a fairly big radius because there is no radius. It's all dependent on the intensity. So the radius is actually a bullshit value that we just use to limit light's influence and to optimize performance. But in reality, you only have intensity, and that's how you define it. So what you always want usually is, when you can afford it, that your radius is so big that you don't cut off the light's intensity. So for example, you can see now the light has an intensity of 4,000 and we still hit this point. So if I would basically choose a radius of 1,000, see that we actually cut off the light. It still kind of looks okay, but we artificially cut it off because it would go further than that. So if I do 1,500, now we get it, and what we should do instead is actually go like maybe 3,500 intensity. No, that's still too intense. Let's say 2,500. And see how we start to lose the light here, and we still have a lot of light here. And that is actually like, so this is how it works in real life. So actually the light should only have an intensity of 1,000 and then it would not reach there. But again, this is way more what this should look like. Also, I think the fire particle is a little bit too small. It should be a little bit more fire, and yeah. But again, I mean, like, I also don't know how this is meant to look. So I would just say my personal feeling is like this should be a little bit a bigger fire, and maybe 4,000 is a bit much, maybe 3,000 is a bit better. I think that's fine. So we got that. And on the torches, we have 1,000 radius as well. And let's just go in with the light source and say, like, you know what? Let's make it 3,000. I think that's still enough. It would sometimes be nice to actually have the option to offset the attenuation of the light. So basically what that means is you can see how this like blows out a bit here. And what you can do is like sometimes you have that in engines that you can offset the attenuation of the light. That means it would basically, it starts looking like as if, I'm just gonna do this with the light here now. So you can see this is the torch and here's the light source. And it basically, the attenuation offset acts as if the light virtually was doing this. So you can see how this looks more natural, but the light source is still here, but it moves back the attenuation. Of course, it doesn't move it back like this, because then if there was another wall on the other side, you would get the problem there. But it's basically shrinking the attenuation towards the inwards of the light. It's like, it breaks PBR in that sense, you know, it's not like physically accurate, but it can help a lot when you have to place light sources that should be fairly strong and that need to be strong, when you need to place them close to surface and you get like blownouts. And of course in real life things like that happen as well, but in a game environment, you often need a bit more control, because like sometimes maybe you would get like a super huge bloom effect or like a lens flare because of that in your face, and you actually don't want that. So in a game environment, you just want to, it's all about control, right? And that is actually the only reason why we have fake values. That is, for example, the only reason why we have this value here, min roughness. That value, it makes the light source reflection seem rougher. So you can have a mirror surface and put that value to 1, and it would look like the mirror was actually having a roughness of 1 instead of 0, but it's only for this specific light. And that way you can make lights that are basically only diffuse. And of course this is a hack, it's not PBR at all, but you need some control sometimes in a game environment. And that's why you want to have all these fake values. Sometimes I would also like to have a value where I can say I can turn off the diffuse or the specular contribution of a light. This one, the min roughness, is a little bit similar to turning the spec off, because it kind of like looks like that in the end. But yeah, you know, that's just some thoughts here. Like sometimes it's nice to have this control and be able to, well, yeah, break PBR in that sense. I'm actually gonna lower the point light to 2500 for now. Cool. So now, oh yeah, just one more thing. You saw that here. I also have indirect lighting intensity of 1.5. I really like, sometimes I think that local lights, it feels that they are not like bouncing as much as they should. I don't know how mathematically accurate this is, but I read something somewhere when it was like about light values and stuff like that, and I think I might need to look at that again. I think I read something from Brian Karras, or maybe it was Daniel Wright, I don't remember, but that Epic is like kind of changing some of the values to align things a bit more, and that some of the intensities were a little bit like weird in relationship to how they should have been. So maybe this will get fixed in 4.19 or 20. Like I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But sometimes I like to have my local lights just at like 1.5 or 2, because then I feel it's bouncing a bit better. So let's just also do that here for our indirect lighting intensity of the torch, and just recompile and save that thing. And please ignore the fact that I have volumetric scattering 5 on the fire, because it's not important right now. We'll look at that later. Yo, so I think we should do a bake and see what we will get here. Let me just quickly see that there is no evil stuff in here anymore. Yeah, that looks all correct. Yeah, that stuff is all baked as well, but that looks good. How about them trees? Yep. Okay. One more thing I want to do. I want to quickly check the light mass importance volume. And I just want to make sure. Yeah, see, I already did that, because this is like my old scene basically. So you can see this is the light mass importance volume here. God knows why the pivot is so offsetted. You know, let's just delete this thing and add a new one. Sometimes, you know, like when things are like that, you never know, is this like good, or like is something broken, or, you know, let's just add a new one. Oh, one interesting thing, in case you ever wondered. So the light mass importance volume, it places the samples adaptively. So it kind of like checks where is some geometry, and then it like places samples around the geometry. Sometimes you don't get the sample coverage that you would like, although that changed quite a bit now with the new volumetric light map. It's a little bit trickier when you switch back to the here. Here we got volumetric light map, and we can also use VLM, which is sparse volume lighting samples. Again, fancy words for standard stuff, but anyways, so this is the old system, and sometimes when you use the light mass importance volume, you don't get as many samples as you would like. What you can do is you can use the light mass character indirect detail volume, because we like long names. And the cool thing is, if you place this, you will wait. Did they? Okay, that changed. Okay, maybe this is different because of the VLM implementation. Let's see what happens if I swap back to this. Because damn. Okay. In the past, what you could do, you could specify the resolution, but maybe it's just like done via the global multiplier now. So basically what you could say is, you could say like this much resolution in the directions. So you had a lot more control over how the samples are placed, because the samples are basically not placed adaptively, but they're just placed in an equal grid. So you have like 20 samples along the y-axis, 20 samples along the x-axis, and like 10 samples along the z-axis, for example. And that way you just get that grid. No matter what, no matter how many or how little objects you have in the scene, the grid will always be the same density. And sometimes that can help to get things done. I think what's going on right now is maybe you can only scale this value with this one now, volume light sample placement scale. So I guess you cannot define the actual resolution anymore of the character indirect detail volume, but rather you just scale that value and then it like places 20 or 40 or 50 samples along one axis. I assume that. But yeah, try these things out. That's gonna be fine. So we're gonna go back to this one. We keep this. And we're gonna add the light mass importance volume. So I really ask myself, why can I scale this thing nicely and the reflection captures, they're such a pain in the ass to scale? I mean, this is really like, it's almost offensive workflow-wise how bad that is to use. And there is no real reason for it. I mean, why would it be that bad to use? It's, I don't know. So I'm not gonna make it as big anymore as it was before because we don't have any stuff here. So we don't really. So let's place it like this. We don't really need any samples there. There's also, I mean, there's no content that we can like walk on up here or like some additional dynamic content. So it doesn't make any sense to make it bigger. I'm just trying to get all the scene in and all the trees and okay, so we're actually there's also another thing that you can do. Let's see. Draw brush polys. No? Are you kidding me? Come on. Yeah, usually this was shading the volume as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's weird because you could like draw this volume so you can like just see it nicely. But apparently not anymore. Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit sad. So again, I thought like usually this was actually shading the volume, so you can really see where the volume was colliding with things. But again, I mean, I've said this several times in my videos. With each of the updates that Epic is doing, sometimes they also break stuff, and no one notices for a very long time. And some of the licensed customers, they might just like fix it themselves. So it actually, they never tell Epic that it's broken with a new version. And Epic just like, you know, maybe, you know, it's not always that easy with with tech and game development. Of course, you have QA people looking at all these things, but I mean, you can't have an automated test for if this is still working because it's a visual thing and you don't see it. And you know, these things, they can just slip through, and yeah, then you might get that. So cool, we have that. Let's do a thing and save all. Not that we get like a weird crash and everything is gone. All right. So let's look at the world settings quickly. So we're still good with these settings, right? I mean, we got a 2K atlas size for our light maps. We will not use AO. We keep the default settings for VLM, and we have our default baking values here, and we just have like 10 bounces from the sky and from all the other light sources. So that's gonna be fine. Whoops. I'd say we're gonna do a medium bake because preview usually is, yeah. I think you guys know by now what I think of the preview bake feature. The preview bake actually is not that bad when you start increasing some of these settings here. Then a preview bake can look significantly different, which is like some of my settings that I use for ArcVis, for example. If you do a medium bake, the medium bake with this enhanced setup will look like 5 times better than a production bake with default settings. So there's always like these things to consider too. Anyways, let's start the bake. And while we're baking, a really cool new feature that I have been eager to show you guys, or to at least work with it for a very long time, is actually the Plume Convolution feature, or FFT, which stands for Fast Fourier Transform. It's a technique where, based on textures, you displace things in the image, or like, for example, FFT can be used for ocean rendering. So if we're just gonna look at this and we go like Fft Ocean Simulation, this is actually also from Unreal now, and this is basically, yeah, it runs very well. It's like FFT Ocean is for like deep ocean, out in the sea. Like you can see here, Gerstner wave. Gerstner wave is more like the rolling wave that comes towards the beach, like the surfer waves. FFT is more like this, and FFT transformation is like texture based. So you let's see here, Fast Fourier Transform. That is like the name of the technique. And you can see here like some tessellation stuff going on, and then you get, obviously you get shit tons of math as well, which is way beyond my brain capacity and my knowledge and understanding. So I mean, I'm not a programmer. There's a reason why I chose art and not formulas. But let's see if we look for this, or if we look for this, yeah, well, doesn't really help us. But anyways, it is texture based. You can use textures, and textures basically define what happens, like these curves and things, and they basically say where stuff have to go. Long story short, Epic implemented a feature that allows you to use FFT algorithm to transform the way bloom is distributed in your image. Again, if we look at whoops. So this is the Unreal bloom, right? So this is just what we get, you know. We get like these things, or here we get like the nice bloom, or here. That is what we used to have. But that actually, and excuse my language, looks like shit. And it doesn't look like even close to realistic. What you have in real life is this. As you can see, this little star here, or here. And, you know, these things, they change. So, like, the bloom starts out like this, and the more bright it becomes, the more it actually starts, like, changing in real life as well. And that is, like, super heavily based on, like, optics. So, fun fact. Let's look at... oops. God damn it. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Not at all. So, a lot of times when you look through a camera, you get like the anamorphic bloom, or you get like, do you see how there's like this little star shape here as well? Let me see if I can get something better. I don't want images from video games. I want some real shit. Give me a photograph. God, why is it so hard to find the right images when you're trying to explain something? Ha! There we go. So you can see this star bloom effect here. And that is how it happens in reality when you look through a camera. Sometimes you get these things with the pure eye, with the naked eye too. But I, for example, wear glasses. So it's actually funny when you have these arguments with people when you start making games more cinematic, and then people argue like, yeah, but you don't get like lens flare, and you don't get like all these things in real life, so why would you get it in your game? And it's annoying, I don't see where I'm shooting because of all that shit. And I'm like, well, guys, have you ever worn glasses? Because I get all of that. For me, this is real life. Because of the glass in front of my eye. And like, you don't want to see how my world looks like when it's raining. Because when I got rain on my glasses and I'm walking through the streets, it's exactly as crazy as in modern video games. So depending on your own perspective of where you are in your life and how, if you have glasses or not, it might actually be very true that you get all these effects. So just bear that in mind. Just because you don't get star bloom when you look out doesn't mean other people will not have it. So for me, when I play Battlefield, for example, this is like very close to things that I actually see. Of course, it's a bit more cinematic with like some chromatic aberration and things like that. But in general, that's yeah, it's fairly close. So how do we do all of that? We will go to our post-pros volume. And if we go into the bloom tab, you can see that the method of our bloom is now standard. And look at the, yeah, we're building. So look at the sun. Do you see this here? Like, this is the sun bloom, right? And this looks like, it doesn't look bad, but it's exactly that issue that we described before. So now let's do something cool. And by the way, this is only coming from my HDR image background. This is like from my sky. And you can see that there is even a little bit of star bloom in the sky texture. But this is the cool thing when you import an HDR image. You have so much range of value. This spot here, where the sun is so bright that it just starts blooming per default. So let's make this look super cool. So let's switch to convolution. And now it looks super ugly, as you can see. But look at this. Do you see this nice star bloom now? Let's choose the kernel and see if we have I don't know what the texture is called, to be honest. Because Epic has a default texture in here that you can use for that. Star, maybe. No. Probably not this one. Whoa! Whoa, look at this! Holy crap. And can you see how my image is like going, like, it's super expensive. Woo! This is actually quite cool. This is actually quite cool. Yeah, but it's not the right texture, obviously. God damn it. There, it's like in a engine folder. So let's do it the other way around. Let's go into our content browser, engine content, textures. Default Bloom kernel. Yep, that's the one I was looking for. Haha. And okay, so that is a bit sad now. Do you see that? How like we get this super weird artifact? Ah, this is not nice. So this must be. Damn. So this is the texture, and you can see that. There is a little bit of like. Yeah. It's hard to tell. No MIPS, HDR, that's all good. Never stream, yada yada. Yeah, I mean, this is like some heavy bending here that we're getting. We might need to edit the texture a little bit. So, but the cool thing is obviously you will get like all this stuff here. You see here at the top how the sun comes through like this. I mean, this just looks so much nicer. It feels like it's really having issues with the brightness of the sky. I want to try something. I want to see what happens if I adjust the brightness of the texture. Nothing for now. So you can see here, now I made the texture brighter, and you can see this is the stuff that we like. See, this is the problem. That is actually really bad from Epic that you get this. And that is like when I made the texture brighter, you saw this happening. So that is the bending issue that we're getting. And the annoying thing is, no matter what I do here to the texture, it's like not really having an impact here. So this is actually quite nice, but this is really, really, really bad. And yeah, no matter what type of tweaks I choose in here, it's not really getting better. Let's see if we can do something here. Whoa. So let's see how this works, because I haven't really done a lot of these things before. So that just makes it brighter here. Yeah. Okay, that seems pretty good actually. Let's say this is 15,000, so let's do 2,000. Haha! See? Fixed. So we want more than that actually. Let's do... Oh. Whoopsala, that's wrong. Let's do 1,500. I think this is pretty decent. See, like you get something, but it's not like super offensive in your eye. Yeah, this is kind of, I mean, the thing is like, yeah, you should probably like make a better texture for this that doesn't have these banding issues. And I'm actually, it's a bit sad that Epic provides a texture that has these problems with the HDR range, but I think that's the reason why you have these settings down here. So you can have a little bit of a impact on that. I think that's actually quite nice. It would be really funny to test this with like some other textures like we did before. You know, like maybe something that has like a big anamorphic bloom streak or something like that. I mean, you know, like just take the texture and put like an anamorphic flare on top of that. So kind of like yeah, you know, like add something like this on top of the thing. And obviously you will not get moving elements from that. That is what you have to build your own, yeah. Which you can actually do with particle systems to a certain extent. So then you can have like lens elements like this, like moving and offsetting and things like that. But yeah, I think like something like this would already be cool to try out and like add it to, or yeah, something more like this maybe. Actually kind of like this one. That would be really cool to just try out. And basically what you want to do is you want to export the texture from Epic and start like fooling around with it in Photoshop. Cool. So that's actually a lot better now. Yeah. I like that. I mean, it's see that sparkling. This is so nice. Imagine when you have water and you have like some really nice water and like the light hits the water here. Look at this. And you I jumped. Come on. We need like a here. There it was. But like if you have like some ocean or like a here, nice. When you have like an ocean or like a river and you get like some really nice sparkle effect, and then you get this kind of like super nice bloom from it. So the scene is running horribly bad right now, and so first of all, this bloom has an effect on it. So Epic says it's quite expensive. So bear that in mind. It's not really something that you can use right now for gameplay, but since this is a portfolio scene, it doesn't really matter so much. Epic basically says it's a cinematic feature. Use it for like cutscenes and things like that. But it should also be a lot better once the lighting is baked, because obviously having unbaked lighting makes the rendering more expensive, because everything is running in, like, you know, all the shadows are fully dynamic and all that. It's actually quite a bit more expensive. And then also most of my computer is working on baking the lighting right now. So yeah, what we will do is we will just go back to standard bloom for now, and you see it doesn't really run a lot better. So it's not that the bloom is completely killing my machine. Ah, I like the look of the Plume Convolution. I really need to do like some more fooling around with different textures, because as you can see, you get color as well, and the color is the color that we have in here, as you can see when I zoom into the texture. So it is sensitive to the content. It's not just like a black and white image. It considers the colors as well, which is very, very nice. Yes. And I'm really looking forward to see what we basically get when all these lights are not there anymore. Like, because you can still see a lot of these, like, you know, sometimes it actually quite looks like a baking arrow almost. It's like weird light leaking or something like that. Oh, and I just see that the shader for these ones is still kind of fucked. Oh, and that might actually be the case because it's also having the wood. And yeah, of course. I think that is the case. So you can see here, it's actually like this texture. So I can't just go in and change the color because it would affect the bark as well. But this is a weird color. I think we should just keep it like this. And let's try this. So you can use this value here when you want to multiply something up to be brighter. Yeah, so I mean, we're not in the same range as these ones, but that's okay for now. I don't want to have too much of an impact on the bark. But you know what, like maybe just offset it a little bit more. Like this. And then gonna get a little bit of desaturation going. Oh, that's more than a little bit. Let's do this. Oh yeah, damn, it works the other way around. Haha. I was like typing in 0.75 because I was like, you know, saturation 1 is like full saturation, 0.75 is a little bit less, but actually it works the other way around. 0 is no desaturation, and then you just enter like 0.25, and we're actually fairly close. Sweet. So let's just save that before something weird happens. You never know. I'd also like to look at some of the base colors here. Some of this stuff, it looks very it's extremely desaturated sometimes. I'm actually curious. I think I also messed around with the vertex animation of the scene because I thought that like some of the way the stuff moved was not as cool. So you can see now this might actually be my own vertex shader here. Let's double check. Oh, by the way, there's another cool thing that we can see here. Oh yeah. Do you see how it's Do you see how it kind of like looks like it's morphing a bit here? I had that in my ArcViz video where I said that like when you want to have animated vegetation, you have to enable the correct motion vectors from it, otherwise it will look a bit messy. Because basically temporal anti-aliasing is having troubles with, you know, see here there's like tons of like ghosting inside here and all that. So I'm pretty sure that that stuff is turned off. But we can have a look at that. This could actually be my wind. Let's see. World position offset goes up there. That's already a good sign. In terms of like, usually I just build my stuff a little bit away from the shader graph. But this is the simple grass wind and it's not, yes, exactly. Haha. So, people use the simple grass wind, but actually think it looks pretty bad. And what I do here is, it's something entirely different. I use a normal map for water, kind of like this. And I basically bring them together. Like, I move two different scales of normal maps that are like in world, tiled in world, against each other, but only use the RNG channels, and I basically use that to make the grass move based on the textures. So that actually is like a little bit like a FFT transformation, like we talked before. It's a similar concept. And then what I do is to make sure that the grass does not move at the bottom. I use the texture coordinate node and mask the green channel. So what happens is the texture coordinates, when you preview them, they look like this. And what you can do is you can basically mask off a channel, like I did here, the green channel, and then you will get a gradient if the shader likes to compile or not. Great stuff. Well, basically, the texture coordinate nodes are two. Yeah, here there are two gradients. The green channel is a gradient like from top to bottom, and the red channel is a gradient from left to right. So if you mask that off, you get this gradient, and then you can flip it. And what it basically does is it nullifies the vertex animation at, and that way you make it happen so that only the top parts of the grass or of the bushes are moving, and the bottom parts they stick. And that actually, in my opinion, looks a lot better than the simple grass wind, because now you can see that these things are actually like really, you know, they are actually kind of like moving like they are blowing in the wind a lot more than what the other what it kind of like did before. Obviously, it's like fucking up down here a bit. I just like did it like pretty quickly, but I wanted to get more life into the scene. I thought the vertex animation was a bit static before, and it could be that actually they are probably using that as well. They are pretty much, I think, using the same setup. Yeah. So they use that wind too, and it's actually great because you can do a lot of things with such a texture-based wind, and you can get a lot of cool motion going inside your scene. So what we should also do quickly is if we go to the project settings, and we'll have to do that after the bake. And if you go to the project settings and then you go to rendering, and then you go somewhere down here. Here. Accurate velocities from vertex deformation. You can see this is not checked. And that basically says that when you have vertex deformation, like we have here on these things, now you can see how it actually looks really, really messy. And that is because we don't have motion vectors that tell the temporal anti-aliasing towards where the object is moving, towards where the pixels are being displaced, kind of like the vertex deformation is doing that for us. And temporal anti-aliasing doesn't know about that. And that is why it's kind of like fucking up a little bit. And other content, like when you, for example, have this guy here and you walk around with him, he generates motion vectors. And you will basically like just see no artifacts whatsoever, because when he moves his limbs and all that, it generates motion vectors, and then he's always going to be like rendered properly. So we definitely have to turn that on. And we definitely have to turn some of the wind down. Yeah. So here you can see the problem. Basically, I need to time. So when it stops moving. So now you can see how the shader works, right? So you can see down here, it has it kind of fixed. And up here, the stuff moves like quite a bit. Yeah. And so now we actually have a problem here because of the way this is being layouted. So you can see that like this piece of grass moves like really a lot. Some of these smaller ones, they don't move a lot. And the stuff up here, it just moves like crazy. And that is like a little bit problematic in terms of how the UV layout has been laid out. There might have been better to use full slides here, or make like a texture that is like only a rectangular texture basically for these ones, and then have like two textures for that. But you know, that's minor stuff. But there's also some weird normal stuff going on in the shader, I think. At least it looks like some scrolling normal maps here or something. Two-sided sign. No. We really should get rid of this thing here, just so we cannot fuck things up. Let's just like completely get rid of it. We should never have to touch the emissive to make vegetation work. If you have to do that, then you're basically fighting other problems that you should fix, but that you might not even aware of that you have them, and stuff is just weird, and that's why you're kind of like, oh man, why is my vegetation so dark? I need to like boost it and like emissive and yada yada. But no, usually you don't have to do that. Well, I mean, pretty much you never have to do that. It's only really, really edge cases, like for example, when we did the Arctic environment, like the ice cave scene, I had to fake some of the subsurface a little bit with emissive, because it was just not, excuse me, it was not working as much as you want it to, because the thing is, like, it's all just approximations, right? And Unreal, for example, can't make subsurface scattering from static light sources. So when you want to have subsurface scattering, you always need some sort of dynamic light source that can either be a movable light or it can be a stationary light, because a stationary light still has the direct lighting being computed at runtime. And it's the direct lighting that the subsurface cares about. Sadly, subsurface cannot yet sample from the indirect lighting cache or the volumetric light map. I think that would be really, really fucking cool if we could get something like that, where you'd say, like, yeah, if you have a very strong light direction from one of the samples, that it actually triggers subsurface. That would... it would make subsurface look so much better. But yeah, right now we have to fake it like that. And it's actually the same way on Battlefront, for example. We we also had like the ice caves on Hoth, and we had to fake a lot with emissive, because you can just not really render or afford all these things in real time. So that's the thing. Just gonna have a look here. That really adds a lot, but it's way too yellow for my taste. So we're gonna make this lighting pretty fresh in terms of value, because we have this nice sky, and we got like the fresh ivies here. So we're gonna make it like that, and then excuse me. Oh, I had a rough night yesterday. I was at the Kendrick Lamar concert here in Stockholm, and it was super, super good. But I don't know. I mean, the people, they just went fucking crazy. It felt like I was at a punk concert or something. It was like all the kids and people around me was just like going totally mental, jumping around like crazy. It was super, super awesome. But I have to admit, I'm a tiny little bit tired. So now we're gonna grade it, and we're gonna make it. We're gonna get to that look via the grading more, but we're gonna make this like look super nice first, and then we're gonna, like I explained in one of the other videos, we're gonna add the Dark Souls flavor on top of it, and make it look really, really nice. We're gonna look at all the fogging and stuff, and so okay, so we're at 61%. After the bake is done, we're just gonna look at it, and then we're gonna call it a day with this session. I really like this area. I think when we can have this like nicely rebaked, and also like you can see the vegetation here is a bit weird. I think like when we can get this going, it can look really, really nice. And this is just like very weird looking here. What we also need to do then is, I think we don't have any more reflection capture actors here. Yeah, I think the only reflection capture actor that we have right now is like the one in here. That one is probably, yeah. So I mean, this will also make like a big difference later for the whole readability and all that. So if I'm just gonna turn this off, you can see on the floor it like helps a lot. But it also just helps a lot with defining some of the shapes a bit more. and it will actually help us a lot in these other parts as well. Yeah. So, I'm starting to just bubble about random stuff now because the bake is taking so long. Kind of running out of things to say. So once we're like happy with our bake and lighting quality, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring back the fog, and we will start like working really nice with the fog, and we're gonna also just look a tiny little bit more at some of the vegetation stuff. I mean, some of this stuff is, it looks super weird, but I think it's also the way these are built. I mean, I think like these crazy angles, like that's causing some issues here, as you can see. But I would really like to, you know, just like go through the vegetation shader in general. And just try to set it up in a nicer way. I'm gonna follow Epic's tradition in being fancy with my namings, and I'm just gonna call this FFT wind, even though it's not really a full FFT wind. Yeah. So no, what we should really do is, and that is like very, very interesting, is like we really need to work with the opacity and with the subsurface color. So like to get like thickness, you know, because basically what you see here is that like the leaf is just it has the same thickness everywhere, you know. It doesn't matter, like you know, here it should be thicker in the centers and all that, and you can't really do that when you just feed in the color, basically. So what you actually want is you want some sort of subsurface texture. And well, I mean, this is not the perfect subsurface texture by any means, but it kind of gives you some of these things. First of all, here the leaves are overlapping, which means they should all be like, it should all be darker here. And then you also want the centers to be like darker. So this is like the really crucial part would be to kind of like get this more right. And then you have to basically use them together as thickness, subsurface, mask combined with the opacity. And that way you will get some really, really sexy looking subsurface effects, basically. But it is a bit tricky to set it up in a clean way, and you just kind of have to well, experiment a little bit as well. I'm kinda... One thing that really annoys me, actually, is that we don't have a proper roughness texture set up. And if I go back to the shader, the roughness is just this value. And that's actually gonna look very bad, because as you can see, it just all looks like the same, and it looks very much like plastic, as you can see here. So what I'm probably gonna do, I'm probably just gonna take the red channel of the texture and multiply that by my roughness value. I'm gonna feed that in. And it's gonna look super broken now, because I will most likely need to retweak all of the values for all these shaders. But usually the red channel is a fairly good start for getting at least some sort of variation. It might be super reflective now, based on the multiplier, because the roughness was actually quite dark already in certain spots. So of course, if I multiply it lower than 1, it gets even darker, which makes everything look like it's mirrors. So let's see what happens here. Ah, yeah, but that's great. When the bake is done and we can close off this video, I think then we have a, yeah, see, so this is exactly what I was expecting to happen. And then it's actually fika time for me, which is the, I love that. This is like one of the best parts of like living in Sweden. There are actually many good parts of living in Sweden, but fika is one of them. And fika is basically like when you get together in the afternoon and you have a cup of coffee and you eat like a, not really cake, but you know the Swedes, they have like tons of like these little nice sweet things, you know, that you just eat for fika. I mean, one for example is called Tosca Bulle, I think. Yeah, look at this. This bam! This is just glorious. Swedes eat that stuff all the time, and they love to do fika. And of course, I love to do fika too, since I live here. But Germans have something similar too. We don't have specific things to eat for that. It's usually can be random cookies or cake or like whatever. But the tradition is very much the same. But I think it's not. I'm not sure, but I think like not sure how common it is for like Americans, for example, if they have something similar like that. But the Swedes, they really love their fika, and they like. You don't dare to get in the way of a Swede and his fika. you just don't do that. Anyways, let's tweak this roughness. So now you can see the roughness is actually 0.5. So let's make the roughness 1, and it's still gonna look horribly bad. Let's make like 1.5, 2. What the hell? Do it. This is... Why are you not doing it? So it seems to have changed a bit. It could be that like this channel is really... Let's have a look quickly. Beep, 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 beep. Roughness. So yeah. I mean, like you can see, this is like super dark, right? So we should not want that. So let's just see. 8. You know what's the problem? We should actually lerp it. The problem is we like get some spots that are like fully white here, but we still have like a lot of super dark spots. So even if I put like 10 in, we can't really raise these spots more. And you can see that this sort of looks weird as well, because now everything is like super dull. And that's absolutely not what we want. So what we want is we just want to get like some structure. I want to have it look less like plastic. So let's just go back to our material. Let's put this default thing to 1 and gonna add a lerp. Put that into roughness. Just gonna copy this. So this is also something that you, in my opinion, should never do. You should never hook up a specular parameter and then default it to 0. Because that's just gonna really mess with your values. And you should not start with, like, you know, if you need to do this super late in the end because everything is working, but this one thing just like fucks off a little bit, and then you know, like, okay, you need to have some additional control, maybe then that's okay. But you should never start like that. And then we have like roughness max, and we put that to 1. And we're gonna save it, and probably gonna get quite messy now because it needs to recompile the shader, and we are on 94% of our lighting bake. So let's see if that starts colliding with each other. Sometimes it does. It's like, oh, I'm really importing light maps, but I'm also recompiling the shader, and the computer is like, too much things at the same time. Sweet. So let's have a quick look here. And if we just go back to the buffer, it's probably gonna start importing in a second. So now I can go like this. And say times 5. So now I get the structure, and now I can like raise this one to 0.25. See, and now we're gonna get something like this. And that's way more where we kind of like to be. Yeah, the trees look obviously wrong now too. So let's try to move back here while we can. And it should start importing our stuff any second. So let's just wait for that. Yeah. Okay, there we go. And it will look significantly different now, because we will have a lot less fill lights. Now we will really see what we get from the sky contribution and all that. And we might actually need to increase the sky contribution. We'll see about that. But it is, you know, like, I start with the default values, But overall, what we need is a pleasing image. And that's the reason why we have lighting artists, because you need someone to look at the image and judge the image and basically see what you need to do to get to a certain result, because out of the box you will not get it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be needed at all. And the funny thing is, we're actually super needed. So lighting artist is a very, very rare breed of people, sadly. There's not many of them, and there's even less really good ones of them. So it's like really hard, even for us at DICE, it's really hard to get good lighting artists. And we just, it's the way we see things and how we evaluate the results and all that to make something work. It's like that's how you bring things together, and that's a skill set. So look at this. So, I think we need to limit that bloom a bit more. This is like really ugly. Let's go here and say I think that's fine. So now you can see that this actually looks quite a bit different. And we're also like very, very dark here. So this definitely feels like we want to crank up our skylighting here. So you can see there's a lot of stuff where we are very, very dark. But overall, the bake quality is not bad or anything. So that's pretty nice. I would love to get a bit more blue from the sky. So that is something that, right now we're getting a lot of green and not so much blue here. But that's something that we will be working on and that we will also fix. Here you can see a bit more of the blue coming in. All right. So value-wise, this is actually not too bad. Yeah, here we have like the bad reflections now still. So that's all stuff that we need to tweak. And of course, we also don't really have any volumes here. But I think overall, we're starting to get somewhere. I mean, let's just quickly, for the sake of comparison here, bring back the fog and, go to some cooler color, something like this. And we already have quite some nice stuff going on here. But I definitely want to increase the readability here. And there's like many, many ways of doing this. So I'm not even sure what type of exposure we have set right now. So let's look at that quickly. Beams. Yeah. I mean, this is quite okay. So, and now artistically speaking, I want this to be kind of bright like this, but I don't want this to be this bright. So what I did here, I adjusted the exposure to something like this, right? And I think that this is not really that nice to look at. It starts to, well, it's too much here. I feel like that. So what we can do the next time, so we still are on a very chill setting here, I would say. So what we can do the next time then is that we basically, we will stay with this. So we will stay with this kind of brightness here in the sun, but we will increase our skylighting a bit to get more contribution from the sky. Nice. But I think like when we start looking at this, there's already, we can see how it's starting to come together a bit more, you know. I mean, this is quite bright now, but I'll tell you, like, a lot of this will eventually also come just from the grade, you know. It's like you will, like, we will use like some gain on some of the values, and we might like offset some values like a tiny little bit. Yeah, that's very sensitive. Sheesh. Okay, that's super sensitive. Yeah, whatever. So we can work nicely with some things there and adjust our image in nice ways. Yes. So I think that's it for today. We still have quite a few sessions ahead here because it is a fairly complex environment, and we're still not yet fully there, which is fine. But you know, so yeah, we're gonna keep it like this for now, and we're gonna continue with this fairly soon. I hope you guys had a good time, and there was like some good content in here to help you out, or maybe show you a way of how you could approach certain things. Again, if you really like my content and you think you learned something from it, just consider like dropping by my Patreon or my PayPal, which you can find the links down in the description, and throw me a few bucks if you like. And if you don't, that's fine too. The videos are gonna continue, and they will be always free. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, and have a great time. See you around. Bye bye.